Mr. Graham, welcome in. Thank you for joining. What's on your mind, sir?
Happy New Year. Thanks so much. First, thanks for sharing Dan with us at Inside Sources. He wrote a great piece about the future of the Democratic Party, and it got great pickup with our newspaper partners across the country. Great job. A quick question. So on Twitter, I happened to post or link a picture of Nancy Pelosi being sworn in. It showed like a video clip or something, and the age issue just jumped out at me. And I'm curious from the three of you. It's kind of interesting to look at Team Trump in the nominees for the cabinet. I'm not going to call it a youth movement necessarily, but it's a lot of people who don't have to dye their hair. And I wonder if having Nancy Pelosi's in the House for another 2 years, have her being in the center of politics, having the other older folks in New Hampshire, Jeanne Shaheen turns 78 later this month. She's almost certain to run for another term. That'll make her 85 if she's elected. Do you think that the candidates for Congress, Senate, maybe even governor across the country in 2026 are going to face the age issue in a new way because of the combination of what happened to Biden, plus the fact that you look at the leadership in the Senate and it's in Congress, et cetera, it still looks pretty darn old.
Yeah, even John Thune's looking old to me.
Yeah, exactly. I was noticing that.
Sean, what do you think?
I think Michael's touching on a great subject, and the question is whether it manifests itself. We saw the story of Congresswoman Kay Granger out of Fort Worth,
Exactly.
which it's a bipartisan issue. So it's just a question of, look, getting back to the issue of free speech, I will just say, and obviously, Michael is a live free or die kind of person up there in New Hampshire. I believe strongly in allowing voters to make a choice. And if you're dumb enough to let somebody who doesn't look like they have their faculties together get back in office, that's on the voters. They have a choice. Sometimes they choose. As a fellow New Englander, I know sometimes we let our members stay in too long because they get seniority and the small states want to have it. But at the same time, there is a question, and I'm hoping that this is where primaries, which I think have been somewhat effective, have come in a little bit more to address these issues. And hopefully a lot of these senior folks know when it's time to step aside or face a primary. But I would say this just in a last point, and I said this during the campaign so that I could be consistent on this. I don't think a number, I know some people that are in their 80s that are sharp as a tack, and I know some people in their 60s that have lost it. So I don't think that the number matters. It's on a case-by-case individual basis. But the million-dollar question is, do members, and the problem is for some of these folks, if you're a United States Senator in particular, you get to go to Walter Reed, you've got a staff that takes care of you, that picks you up every morning, that answers your phone. I remember in the case of the Bush administration, there was a very senior administration official that had been in office so long that, honest to God, they called some former aides the day that they had left office and said, and they were living in Alexandria. They didn't know how to get to the airport. They were like, I don't know what to do. And in all honesty, and that's where I think the problem is for some of these folks, it's a reality. They don't know how to live without a swath of aides, right. A cadre of folks that does everything for them, that drives them to Walter Reed to get their medicine, and et cetera, et cetera. But I think voters need to hold people like that on both sides of the aisle accountable if they're past their prime.
Look, I think it's one of the reasons Joe Biden thought he could run for re-election was he looked at Strom Thurmond, Robert Byrd, like, if you have a team around you, like, you can do this. You can kind of age in office, and even though you may be slowing down, like, you can still put points on the board and be successful, he thought, even though you're diminishing, because the kind of machinery around you can grind it out. And of course, that machinery becomes in love with the fact that they think they are essentially the senator or the congressperson. Look, I think it's a huge issue for Democrats. I mean, I think you look around, Steny Hoyer's still up there, Nancy's still up there, Jim Clyburn is still up there. I think Pelosi believes that only she can stop Trump. I think she doesn't really fully have confidence in Hakeem. I think that the caucus looks to her behind the scenes to guide all of this. I think Schumer thinks no one can do what Chuck Schumer can do. And so anytime you start thinking you're indispensable, it's usually time to kind of move on.
There's two other points that are worth making. Number one, to piggyback off what you're saying, Dan, they also know that once they leave, no one's going to answer. I mean, like,
that's exactly right.
You immediately diminish. And then secondly, one of the things that at least three of us who've been on the staff side of things know, and on the consultant side, is that once your person steps down, the money train stops. You have to go out and get a new job. And so there's staff and consultants around you that keep telling you and urging you to keep going.